Contractors play a special role in the government. Hey, I am Chuck the Bureaucrat, and a while ago I posted my, kind of quirky view on the different types of bureaucrats that you run into in the halls of headquarters. And somebody asked me to give my take on different kinds of contractors. Now, let me start by saying this. Contractors are a vital part of the government system. Sometimes they get a bad rap for being no good slimy contractors, but usually that kind of abuse is heaped on by somebody who doesn't fully understand the benefits that we get from contractors. So, to understand how I think about contractors, let me introduce the Contract Datometer. It's a special tool for measuring the overall goodness of a contractor. And really, that top gauge is really a function of the three lower gauges that help us understand how good a contractor is. The three factors that I focus on are the degree to which the contractor subordinates themselves to government decision makers, how effective the contractor is at delivering results, and the extent to which the contractor stays within the bounds of their performance work statement or their PWS. This first measure, the degree to which they subordinate themselves to government decision makers, is really important. In many cases, we hire contractors to provide the support that government officials need to either make or carry out decisions. And I know. You think about a uniformed service member or a GS employee, well, they're supposed to be helping decision makers too. But the big difference is that service members and GS employees, well, they are also supposed to be making decisions. It's that old saying about solving problems at the lowest level possible. But contractors cannot represent the government. They can't make decisions for the government. And they certainly cannot commit the government to financial obligations. And that means that contractors have to subordinate themselves to the people who do make those decisions. The reason this is the first measure that I tend to look to is because it can go off the rails in several colorful ways. If you haven't seen it, hopefully you can imagine like that firebrand Air Force lieutenant colonel who retires and he comes back as a contractor and he keeps acting like that same lieutenant colonel. Trying to tell people what to do, arranging deals in the hallways, and generally cutting the actual decision makers out of the loop. Obviously, that can be problematic, but at the other end of the spectrum, you run into an entirely different problem. You can imagine like a young grad student hired into some contracting position who constantly waits for somebody to tell them what to do. The kind of person that lacks the backbone even to read pre-scripted talking points. So finding the right balance on how much a contractor subordinates themselves, not too little, not too much, that's important. Luckily, when there are issues about this, it often has to do with somebody who is either new to the contracting world or new to a specific contract. In most cases, you'll have contractors who've been working on the job for years, and they know how to strike the right balance, and they can provide the guidance to the new guy. It's not quite as easy with this next attribute, which is delivering results. This is a pretty basic expectation of anybody working the halls of bureaucracy, even though bureaucrats have that reputation for foot dragging. When the boss wants something, she expects to get it. When a congressional inquiry comes down about why some armory in Dubuque, Iowa hasn't gotten funding to repair its damaged roof, the two-star who's on the hook to answer that, well, they're expecting a quick, clear, and compelling justification. She wants those results delivered. Now, there is nothing uniquely magical about contractors when it comes to delivering results. Anyone from the SES all the way down to the most junior major could deliver these results, but when it comes to the contractor, they tend to be low on the totem pole for this kind of thing. When a question rolls all the way downhill to a contractor, there usually isn't anybody for them to pass it along to, and so they have to deliver results. Otherwise, that's going to become a problem pretty quick. And there are some types of contracts where only the contractor can deliver the results that the leadership wants. I'm kind of thinking about those simulation contracts where nobody in the government gets too far into the weeds about how the model works or how the output of the model gets turned into useful PowerPoint. So, for a contractor to be useful or good, they have to be able to deliver results. And this can be a little bit tricky for a certain type of person who prefers to baffle people with BS. Some positions tend to be well suited to this kind of behavior, but government contract jobs, not so much. I'm inclined to say that we should leave the BS to the political appointees and the general officers, but that might be unfair. The final attribute about contractors that matters is the degree to which they stay within the bounds of their performance work statement. You see, a contract specifies what a team of contractors is supposed to be doing, and the cost of that contract it's determined by those activities. Going outside that scope can mean surprise costs for the government, and most offices try to avoid scope creep. Here again, there can be trouble at both ends of the spectrum. A contractor who's too eager to go outside the bounds of their contract can create problems, or at least suspicions about their true motives. And at the same time, a contractor who's unwilling to work at the edges of their PWS or too nitpicky about certain tasks, well, that can create its own set of issues. I was once involved in this situation where the Department of Defense had changed the name of a report from the really important report to the special brief. It was the same product. They had just changed the name for God knows what reason. But the contract had the old name, and somebody was making a big stink about how the contract no longer covered the new product. I mean, we got it fixed, but you can see how someone can take the idea of staying in their lane just a little too far. So, coming back to the overall idea of the contract datometer, I argue that good contractors are a bit of a Goldilocks situation. Not too subordinate, but not too independent. Able to deliver results, but not too personally invested in how those results are used. In their lane, but not too much of a stickler about it. Essentially, quiet, dependable, and balanced. Now, as I indicated at the beginning, contractors are an important part of the ecosystem, but they can get a lot of grief for being a little too money grubbing. It's just kind of an unavoidable aspect of the situation. Contractors exist to generate a profit for their shareholders. So, while the military and government workers can place the mission first, contractors won't. You want to issue equipment from the warehouse at midnight? The enlisted might just grumble, but the contractors are going to be expecting overtime. From my perspective, that's just part of the deal that the government signed up for when they decided to use a contract workforce. I'm kind of curious about what your experiences have been. You guys know I tend to oversimplify these things, and I'm curious to see what insights your comments bring out. In the meantime, here is an old video where I talk about the different types of military folks, and if you want to see what I look like without a beard, watch this video.